lot of people go through life doing things badly. Racing's important to men who do it well. When you're racing, it's life. Anything that happens before or after, it's just waiting.
Matt Williams got a brilliant start from the third row of the grid.
He's gone, he's hit him, he's straight off at the chase.
A half-second lead. Oh, with the silvering car in the background.
He has, he's round on the last lap.
There's a massive accident.
Next to the inside, what a move, what a move.
A very good evening to you all, wherever you happen to be tuning in from and whenever. Welcome to round 4 of the AMS Oz Super 2 series, coming to you from the picturesque Phillip Island Grand Prix circuit, and it's a return to the one race feature race format. So a longer race tonight, 300 points on offer for the victor, and some chocolates as well, I would take, given that it is the eve of the Easter long weekend. As per usual, my name is Nether, or Steve DeVries, and accompanying me in the box, as he always does, for Super 2 is Hans Brunswick. G'day, Hans. Nope, he's having a few technical gremlins here by the sounds of things, and we're not sure why, but he is here. He is next door to me, and he might be up and running now.
Hello, Stephen. Thank you for the good welcome. As always, it's nice to be at a track that we actually have driven before, which is always good fun. And hopefully we're going to see some fireworks tonight in this feature race format.
Yeah, certainly. You and I have driven here in Aussie Driver Search last year. We both took part in that, and it's a circuit that we're going to be at in a couple of weeks' time for real, actually, with the Victorian State Series in the second round. So if any of you who are Victorians come down and say hello, we will be floating around and we'll be up near the commentary box. And also Ben Rhodes, who's our roving pit reporter, he's no stranger to this circuit as well, having been there and driven there as well. Good evening, Ben.
Howdy. Yeah, I think just thinking back, this is probably my second home when it comes to racing. I've driven here, I think 3 times. 3 times I've driven here. Been here plenty of times for state series photography and race photography and commentary as well. So run the full gamut of work here in real life, and happy to. I'm loving being here for in the Super 2 series. It's just unfortunate I can't be in my car for it.
That's it. Well, a quick look at the race calendar. So we are the 4th race on the calendar here tonight. It's the first and only pair of the second pair of back-to-back race rounds. So we had 14th and 21st of March were back-to-back, and also April the 11th and 18th are back-to-back rounds as well. So there we are at Phillip Island Grand Prix circuit, and as we said, it is a return to the feature race length format. And as we say that, here it is, the wonderful Phillip Island Grand Prix circuit. So we're set for 40 laps tonight, so just a touch under 180 kilometres in distance. It's a counterclockwise direction circuit, so it's the second of those circuits that we have encountered in quick succession, actually. 7 left, 5 right, 12 corners total. It's a track that's been steeped in a lot of history for many, many years. It's a very fast and free-flowing circuit, so there's a lot of medium speed corners that put a lot of tyre wear on the edges of the car. But with the good go the bad, and Hans, you'll probably back me up on these points here too. The pinch points at turns 4 and 10, so Honda hairpin and MG hairpin, passing points, but they can get quite close there. And also, important to note tonight, the pit lane entry and the pit lane exit. The feature race does have pit stops, and unfortunately, the pit in is quite high speed, and the pit out feeds you directly onto the racing line of the circuit. So, going to have to be a bit careful here, some of these boys tonight.
Yeah, turn 4, turn 10. If you're not exactly straight, if the car still has a bit of steering lock angle on it, or the car is merely yawing in a certain direction, what will happen is that you will actually pinch an inside front generally. Sometimes you can pinch an outside front because it will, just back and forth sort of thing when you're loading it up and then you bring the load off it. Interesting to note also like you said, the pit lane entry and exit. So high speed entry could have a few mistakes there. So we've seen in real life and in games gone past that it's been very hard to get down to the 40k an hour speed limit. and also the pit lane exit, you do come right onto the racing line, like you said, and you just go over that hill slightly. So you might be barreling down, looking at Bass Strait, and all of a sudden you've got a car in front of you. So, yeah, Phillip Island, the right rear takes the punishing around here, and you just got to be able to manage the tyre life and make them last.
Certainly do. We will come back and have a look at the driver points in between qualifying and the race, but for the moment we will disappear over to see the progress of what's happening at the moment. And as we can see here, as we're just waiting to pick up a little bit of audio, and there we go. So still got the 2 flying laps for each driver. And at the moment, Termo is the first man out on circuit in the 715 Castrol Racing Nissan. From what we could see, he's the looks like he's the first man out on the circuit. We've unfortunately not got live timing to go with for this particular race. A few technical gremlins yet again, so we'll do our best to bring you the coverage as we can. Actually, we'll just have a quick flick through the field and see if anybody else is coming across the line to start their lap ahead of Termo. But it doesn't look like that is the case. So
I think Termo might have been the one that was lining up at pit lane exit. So he's going to be the first man out.
So here he goes. So taking for a quick lap from the trackside cameras to give you an idea of how this circuit goes. So turn 1 here, the Doohan corner. Nicely on the apex for the right-hander. And you want to try and flow the car out to the left-hand side of the circuit and then tuck it in here for the southern loop. So some drivers will take this as a 2 apex corner, and Termo's very, very wide there. Much wider than he probably would have liked to be very early in the lap. Hook it in here for Stoner corner, the fast left-hander, and now hard on the brakes. First of the 2 pinch points, and he's had a lock up there and gone deep, and he's gone onto the grass at the hairpin. So that's Honda hairpin, which is turn 4, one of the pinch points that we spoke about just a few moments ago. Through the kink at turn 5, and now he turns left at Siberia. Patient, patient, patient. Now on the throttle, and now through the flowing parts of the course, the left and the right, through turn 7 and 8, up past the hay shed on the left, and now swinging left again, up and over the rise as he tackles Lukey Heights, turn 9, and when the track dips away, spot your braking zone, and hard on the anchors for the right-hander at MG hairpin, second of the pinch points, and now 2 left-handers to finish the lap. A little off-camber one here at turn 11. It catches a few drivers out. It's a little bit slower than it actually looks. And now the left-hander here, the final turn, turn 12, using all the ripple strip on the exit and down to the control line. Termo's first flying lap is a 1:36.199. That's somewhat off the pace that we would traditionally see for qualifying. We have seen some qualifying runs toward the back end of practice that were around the 1:31 mark, which was ironically set by Brenton Foley. And Termo's time immediately surpassed by Mike Coulston, but only by 2.5 tenths. So they're still working their way into the lap here. Josh Ben has joined us for the first time in Super 2, and he's quite substantially off the pace there. He's 18 seconds off the pole, so it's just he's probably made a mistake somewhere as well. A few drivers going wide there at turn number 2 coming out of Southern Loop. Now Steve Burko goes into the 35s. Devonish now into the mid-34s. So time's starting to come thick and fast here, as all the drivers are starting to find their space on this 4.4 kilometre track. Cracker pops up into P5. Again, probably not a truly representative time there. And Devonish just kicks up a little bit of the grass on the outside between turns 2 and 3. And this is the first of the sector splits here. And he's 2.5 down on his own sector split. 2.5 tenths down on his own sector split. He's got a little bit of traffic ahead here in Glenn Miles and Steve Burko. So Burko will be on his second flying lap. In actual fact, he will have aborted that now. There he is, just in the foreground there, across the grass and the gravel. So his run looks like it's done. Turmo now improves his time to the top, so he's gone into the high 33s there, so seven and a bit tenths quicker than Devonish. Now Devonish he's half a second up on his own PB, and he's just shy of a tenth of a second up on the pole time, but he's got Glenn Miles here. Now Glenn Miles is on a quick lap, he's about to start his quick lap, so Devonish is going to come across him. It has to go round the outside. Here's Glenn Miles, now he's actually
that's
there.
Brave. That's very brave. He's managed to keep it on the road, well done.
I've got a funny feeling that's probably going to hamper Will's time here, or does it? Yes, it did. It did in a big way. He lost over 4 tenths there, but Glenn Miles on his flying lap now. I'm not sure if Miles has improved his time there as well, but Devonish probably be a little bit upset with that, but he come across a car on a fast lap, so there's not much you can do about that. We've still got a number of drivers in the pit lane. Cracker has finished his 2-lap run, and his best time is a 38.3. We've still got over half the field sitting in the pits in this 15-minute session, and there we go. Billy Dougal-Salonga looks like he's about to take to the lane, and he is on the roll for his outlap.
Seeing a bit of variation in the lines that they're taking at turn 2. Some people really hug the inside. Some people do take 2 apexes. Some just V the corner. I think the fastest option, well, in real life at least, would be to V the corner. Not sure what the game has, but in some tracks in the game, in some versions of Phillip Island, you can really take it as a double apex corner. You do have 2 clipping points, whereas instead of just going, Ving the corner as if it's 1 apex. So, we're going to see some good variation tonight. Hopefully that makes some good passing opportunities around the outside of turn 2. We've seen some of the slower cars in years gone by in the slower categories that they do actually manage to hang around the outside and get there. So, it'll be interesting.
It certainly will be, and that's something that I remember from our Aussie driver search back in September at Phillip Island. Was talking about taking that turn 2 Southern Loop corner as a double apex, but you don't want to come too far off the inside line. So you must want to hug the apex at the first part of the turn, sort of come out just to somewhere around mid-track, maybe sort of just to the left of the mid-track, and then clip it back in for the second part of the corner, because that then gives you a nice run out to the edge of the exit of turn 2 and sets you up nicely to sweep in for turn 3. And it's also interesting you mentioned about passing around the outside of turn 2. What the ballsy move is to pass around the outside of turn 1 and stay there for the inside for turn 2. We've seen that done from time to time as well, as BDS comes to start his first flying lap. Let's see the lines that he takes. So that's a rather nice line through turn 1, and not using all the exit there, but preferring to stay to the right. And here he is at the mid-track, and now tucking it back in for the second part of the apex. So he's double apexing the Southern Loop and used all the available road on the exit of the turn, which is really good. And through turn 3, hugging it to the left-hand side of the track. And that's a very, very nice sector split there on the provisional pole time of Cam Rutledge, who in our conversations has gone ahead of Turmo, but not by very much. But Billy Dougal-Salonga has got a rather nice margin under his belt on this first flying lap, and a very nice exit out of Siberia. Now up through the hay shed, hard on the gas, beautifully clipping the apex just at the right amount of tyre on the painted curb, and now over Lukey Heights and staying to the left. And look at that, he's found another 4 tenths, Hans. This is a very, very nice lap being put together by the HDS racing driver.
Yeah, it's very nice and smooth lap. He's just very gentle on the throttle. He's just getting from 0 and progressively going to 100% throttle. That's the way you do it around here. He lifts off slightly into turn 12, keeping the platform flat, and then now he's going down the main straight. He's going to start his second flying lap. Let's see what his first flying lap is like. It's 1.3 seconds up. Fantastic effort. That's a 1:32.3. Let's see if he can improve it. He couldn't quite get as close to the apex there as I thought, but that's all right. He's going the same line as he did before.
He's looking a little bit more aggressive through turn 1 this time around, and he found 4 tenths in every single sector. A little bit raggedy on the exit of turn 2 there. He just tried to get on the gas a little bit too early. Let's see if it hampers his time down at Sector 1 split. And it does. So he's 4/10 away from his own PB there. So he's got a lot of time to find if he wants to improve. But we haven't seen a couple of the big guns come out yet. None of the PBF race engineering cars have laid down a time yet. In actual fact, his teammate Mitchell Hathaway has gone 4/10 slower than BDS at the moment. So it's provisionally a front row lockout for HDS Racing in the two ZB Commodores. But still haven't seen Foley or Boak. And Ricky Slick, aka Matt Williams, and Brendan Ross yet to turn some lap times as well. And he's pretty much matched himself for what he did Sector 1 to Sector 2 on both laps here, BDS. But he's going to probably stay with the time that he set on his first flying lap. Judging at the pace he's running right now, that first sector was a little bit on the edge, has cost him. And there's a little bit of action in the pit lane. We can hear some engines on the hop. And he dropped away a bit further at the end of that lap. So here we go. So there's one of the FCR cars just in the background there. And there's the second one. So Slick and Ross will be out on the circuit. And also Gary Neville too. So he's here for FCR Motorsport as well. Campaigning the Commodore.
I think it was interesting watching Billy Douglas Salonga in turn 2. He couldn't quite get the nose back in for the second apex, and I think that sort of transferred from understeer to snap oversteer. So I think it was just having too much lock, and he still wanted to bring the throttle on. And what happened is that sort of shift. So when you have a bit of understeer, what happens is that you've got the lock on, and you try and bring the throttle up, and then it will just snap to oversteer because you've got lock on. So a bit wild in the second lap, but the first lap was pretty good.
Certainly was. The first lap was stunning, and it's the provisional pole time at the moment as Gary Neville pops up into P7. Let's see who else is out there now. So Ricky Slick for FCR Motorsport, Brendan Ross for FCR Motorsport. They're up at Lukey Heights and coming down into MG now. JP Courier is in the pit lane. Now we will explain why he is there very, very shortly. Let's see where the PBF guys are. So here's Phil Boak. He's down at MG. And Brenton Foley is coming around turn 11 now for his first flying lap.
Very important to get a good run to start your flying lap. I think it's if it's a couple of k's an hour here, it adds up to about 5 k's or 7 k's an hour down the main straight. So that's just because you can actually get on the throttle earlier. You can straighten out the corner. And basically, you're spending more time on throttle.
Certainly are. Well,
a bit of a lock-up there.
Brendan Ross, a bit of a lock-up. So we'll have to just flick through and see how these cars that are left on track are going. So at the moment, it's on. In terms of the order on track, it's Brendan Ross from Ricky Slick, and then it's Foley and Boak. So let's see what the sector times are. So Brendan Ross is 2.5 tenths down. Slick is 8.5 tenths down on the provisional pole time. As we come back to Foley and Boak. So Foley's up by 3/10, so that's a very, very good lap, and Boak is up as well, but not by the same margin. So the PBF Commodores coming to play at the moment. They're looking very, very handy through the first sector. In actual fact, it was Foley who set the top time in practice. He was into the 31s and the mid 31s, so he was looking mighty. Brendan Ross has found a little bit of time, but he's still a bit away from the provisional pole time, but they will get across the line for one more lap as they swing through 11. Now the second of the left-handers in this last sector for turn 12. This stage he looks set he's going to be provisionally third, unless he can find any more time. So he goes third, and Ricky Slick goes P7. Now let's find the PBF cars because Foley's gone to the top, 31.4. Boat goes into P2, 31.9. So they just get across the line for another lap. And we'll see Brendan Ross is improving. So the clock is only a few seconds away from hitting double zeros. So these will be the last flying laps. They must improve if they want to advance their position. And Brendan Ross has found some time. He's taken half of the Sector 1 margin out of Foley, but he's still got half to go. We didn't get the time there from Ricky Slick, the teammate behind.
I reckon Foley's got a bit more left on the table because that lap that he did into Honda corner, he didn't quite get it stopped, just early enough. He missed the apex. There was a bit of locking involved, so I think he's still got more in it.
Oh, that car looked a little bit nervous there, Brendan Ross, as it turned in for the left-hander at turn 9 to go over Lukey Heights. He still found some more time, but look at the deficit to lap 1. Oh, and that's a big moment.
He's gone. Wow, look at that. So we've seen him picking up the brake pedal in some areas. We see the brake lights coming on in areas that we really shouldn't see them usually. But I think that car's not very happy at all. So hopefully he can rectify that for the race, Brendan Ross.
Yeah, that was a very, very nervous car as he swung it out of MG corner through the left-hander at turn 11. Now Ricky Slick comes to the line and he improves by 1 spot to P8. What's Foley got? Foley has not improved. So he stays P1 anyway. And Phil Boak has not improved either. All right. So that is the end of qualifying. We've got a PBF lockout on row 1, Foley from Boak, and a HDS lockout on row 2 from BDS and Hathaway. And this third row shared by Brennan Ross and Cam Rutledge, Termo and Ricky Slick, Will Devonish and Gary Neville, your top 10. Now, we do need to make mention of this man here on the screen for JP Simshed is JP Courier. Now, there have been a couple of penalties that have been levied as a result of what happened during the 2 sprint races at the last round in Symmons Plains. So we'll run through those now. So the first of which is JP Courier for lap 4 contact with Mitchell Hathaway at the hairpin turn 4. So as a result, JP didn't finish that race, so they're unable to give him a points penalty or a time penalty for the avoidable contact, but what his punishment was to sit out the qualifying session for Phillip Island. So he will start at the rear of grid, so he's allowed to race. He's done some practice. He was actually relatively quick. He was inside the top half a dozen or so positions during practice, but he did end up having to sit out qualifying. So we'll look to see how fast he can advance from the back of the grid. And it is a long race, and in pit stops involved, so strategy will come into play. The other 2 penalties that came around from the Symmons Plains round was in race 1 for lap 2. We caught this on the broadcast where Billy Douglas-Salonga ended up in the back of Matt Williams at the first turn. Got a little bit out of shape, ended up taking Matt out of the race actually in that particular exchange. So he was awarded 30-second time penalty because he did finish that race. He was awarded a 30-second time penalty, which changes his position in the standings and therefore his points overall on the night. Similar for Steve Burko, who in race 2 on lap 21, this was unsighted on our broadcast, but he apparently passed Matt Williams or Ricky Slick under yellow, and we didn't quite see it. So he was given a 30-second penalty, and we believe that pass was affected out of the hairpin as well. So he was just marginally ahead, but he didn't redress the position, so he unfortunately gets a 30-second penalty as well. And those were all the penalties from Symmons Plains. So with that in mind, we will bring up the driver points now so we can show you what has happened. So Brennan Ross still maintains his advantage at the top of the standings from Phil Boak, although that gap has closed up a little bit because of the finishes that Brennan Ross had were behind Phil Boak, especially in that second race at Symmons Plains. Mitchell Hathaway holds down 3rd place. Cam Rutledge has moved into 4th place and actually got quite... he's actually not that far away from Mitchell Hathaway. And Burko and Slick tied on points. So that little penalty for Steve Burko means that he lost a few points and came back to Matt Williams. So hence they're now tied. And then Billy Douglas-Salonga, he was a little bit closer to Brenton Foley in terms of points. So he's lost, I think, 10 points as a result of his 30-second penalty. And then the remainder there, Devonish, Termo, Dwayne Davies not taking part tonight, having some computer-based issues which are making him feel a bit sick, and then Brownie's P12, but 9, 10 and 11 very close there, only 9 points separating those guys. So plenty of points still to play for, and we're only up to round 4 of 15, so a long way to go. But already some penalties being handed down affecting the point standings, but it's harsh but fair. That's the way things go, and a reminder to all the drivers across all of the AMS Oz series that if you feel you want a penalty looked at, or a penalty assessed rather, due to an incident, you need to report that incident in the relevant stewards channel in the Discord, so it will be looked at. Otherwise, if it doesn't get reported, it doesn't get looked at, plain and simple.
Yeah, quite interesting. The sort of rundown from the last round, the penalties. So, I mean, like you said, it is a long series. Anything can happen. However, we've seen quite a few points caps opening up already. So, I mean, somewhat of that is going to be due to computer issues and people not being able to make races. But I think it's hard to be able to. I mean, it's hard to be able to get back, even though you've gone down in a couple of 100 points at the start. So it's possible. However, it does make it a lot difficult for it.
You're right. You do need results to go your way when something like that happens. We'll check in with our roving pit reporter and see what he's been up to if he's with us. Ben, what have you learnt from qualifying?
I'll be honest, not a whole lot. I walked into the half the drivers' garages and the radios were getting crickets. So I take it that we all driven this ourselves, we know this is a very high focus track. So a lot of guys very much in their mental zone for the qualifying laps. One of the big news is, like as we were just mentioning with Courier, who was one of the quickest guys in practice, not actually being able to qualify at all as such. Another guy who isn't going to be too far up the front for the start of this race, who was doing well in practice, is Josh Ben in my car. His issue was he bottled the first lap, and then he was a bit more on speed for the second lap, came through turn 2 and just went a little bit wide, and AMS did what AMS does and counted him going wider on the track as a track cut, which normally would only be if you're trying to cut across a corner rather than go longer around a corner. But they gave him a track cut, so he didn't get a chance to qualify with that lap, and it was then down to his first lap, which he did bottle. So he is starting the last of the guys who did qualify, and I think at the time was 10 seconds or something off the back of Glenn Miles. But he's got pace. We're not sure yet. We have only tested him in short bouts. We're not sure yet how he's going to go over the length of a race and how he's going to go over, especially with the pit stop strategy. But we're confident from the guys at PBF Pro-Am that if he can manage those things, he's got the pace. We should see him further up the field and maybe even sneak a top 10 at the end of this race. Well,
let's hope you're right. A pair of quick guys at the back trying to get through a number of the not so quick guys. I mean, they do race and they race hard and they play for sheep stations, but they'll have to very carefully pick their way through the back markers at the back of the field and get onto the back of the guys up front as quickly as they possibly can. It'd be interesting to see how the pair of them tackle that particular challenge, given we've got 16 drivers tonight, which is on a little bit, a touch less than what we have had in the last few rounds, but we have had Easter sneak up upon us coming up this particular long weekend as well. So we need to be aware that a number of drivers have opted, and rightfully so, to take a long extended break, and overdue break in for some cases, and they'll be back in a couple of weeks when we tackle the next of our races for the Super 2 series. Hans, let's talk about pits and pit strategy, because it's a 40-lap race, and the word on the ground is that a number of drivers are going to have to two-stop this race. They say they're getting about 17 laps to a tank of fuel, which would put your critical lap number to get home if you work backwards from the 40-lap distance to lap, if my math is correct, it'd be lap 23. So that in itself is an interesting piece, but a number of the drivers are also suggesting that it's more a tyre wear race, this particular event, not a fuel race, and that would be confirmed especially by a number of these long corners. So you turn 11, turn 12, high speed turn 1, turn 2, turn 3. There's a lot of load going through those tyres, and even up through the hay shed as well with the changes of direction, but predominantly right hand side tyre wear will be a factor here tonight. So as much as we think that a number of drivers will try and some drivers might try and stretch that last stop on their tyres, but don't be surprised to see, we may not be surprised to see a few of them fall off, because some of them have reported up to a 2-second drop off on times at the end of their stints. So this is going to be an interesting strategy to see. I mean, if a safety car comes out, it's going to be a one-stop race. Everybody will potentially be in if it comes out at the right time.
Yeah, I mean, the right side, the working side of the car. So, what might happen is, I don't know about Automobilista, I haven't really played it that much, but the thing is, if you can go right sides only, it might save a little bit of time. So, if you go right sides only, that's the working side of the car. The left side might be able to last that long. The fuel question is also then, like you said, safety car. So, if you have a couple of safety cars and someone's pitted early, because they've started low and then they fill themselves up and then they go further. So what will happen is that will take their strategy out of the race. So then they won't benefit from that at all. So it's almost again Russian roulette. Do you bet on a safety car? Do you want to go further? Or do you come in straight away lap 17 and then you go lap 23, that sort of stuff. So it's a bit of I'm just watching the timing monitor now. I mean, I'm watching the screen now. A bit of hilarity ensuing right there. But yeah, so it depends. Between lap 17 and 23, do you come in and fill it all the way up to the top, or do you perhaps conserve a little bit and try and get that little 200 mil of fuel, that sort of stuff. So, but then the consequence of that being the long corners, you have to throw it in and try and make it with mid corner speed. So then when you do that, you're asking too much of the you're asking too much of the car in the mid corner. So what will happen is that you might just go spearing off. So it's trying to make lap speed and save fuel and save tires is quite difficult. But also all these things, they all go together. So you try and make it through the mid corner, you end up going to working the tires harder. You try and V every corner and trying to give the tires a bit of relaxation, then you're going to spend a lot of fuel, and that's the trade off we're going to have between the two things. But Phillip Island always puts on some pretty good racing. It always puts on some pretty wild moments as well. So hopefully we can get all our finishes tonight. They're on the right side of the fence and they're not ending up down in the paddock somewhere.
That's right. And that combined with the fact that Phillip Island in real life is one of the highest average speed circuits in the country as well. It's I think it's only second to Bathurst, if memory serves me correctly. It's a very, very high average speed circuit. So saving fuel here is no easy challenge. No easy challenge at all. Well, the practice or the warm-up in between qualifying and the race has just expired, so we're just waiting for the timer to ring out and signal the drivers to make their way to the grid. And looks like that is about to happen. So we will take you back to live pictures as we count down the 60 seconds or so to the start of the formation lap. So Brenton Foley and Phil Boak, the only men to get into the 1-minute 31s, or under the 1-minute 32 barrier. Now, interesting to note here, look on the grid, the proximity of the cars to each other on the grid is very, 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 very close. So if someone gets a bad start, and Hans is just gesticulating in here about how upset he is. The amount of room or wiggle room, if someone stalls or someone gets a really bad start, could be terrifying. So quick reactions are going to be very, very important should there be any trouble at the start of this race. So the grid is set. The grid is on the formation lap. Hans, let's go through it.
So PBF Race Engineering 1 and 2, Brenton Foley in our defending champion car 1 off position number 1, then 015, that's Phil Boak. Interesting to see the like you said, I was waving my hands and stressed out at everything. I think that's a half car length distance between each grid spot, which is shocking, isn't it? But that's the track we're racing with tonight. But it's not, Phillip Island in real life is not that way. So Phil Boak in second, a very good effort. Then we've got Billy Dougal-Salonga, the first of the HDS Racing ZB Opel Commodores. I mean, Holden Insignias. I mean, whatever they're called. The Holden Commodore ZB. And then we've got the second of the HDS racing cars. So interesting to note the Pro-Am drivers qualified in front of the pro driver. So Mitch Hathaway in 99 there. Then going back to fifth place, Brendan Ross. Solid effort, but I think he's a bit unhappy with his second lap. He was definitely going to go perhaps up to the second row, but didn't quite glue it together just right. So the first of the CRE Electrical Commodores, that's Cam Rutledge off grid number 6 off the third row. Very solid effort. Then we got Termo in Castrol Termo Racing, number 715. Then Nissan Altima. Then Ricky Slick, Matt Williams, FCR Motorsport in number, 37? Yeah, 37. Yeah, there we go, 37. And we've got the second of the CRE Motorsport cars, that's Will Devonish in car number 15. Then Gary Neville in the FCR Motorsport AM entry. I think he's going to try and keep his nose clean and see if he can move forward off grid number 10. So then Steve Burko in the green and black FGX Falcon in car 5. The first of the Scuderia Alitalia cars, Mike Coulston in number 66, is that? Yeah, number 66. So I think he's just the sole remaining Scuderia Alitalia car tonight. So hopefully he can fly the flag while she is watching our telecast tonight. A big shout out to you, mate. Cracker Racing Team in the Penrite guest car, or is not? It's not a guest car, is it? No, it is. Okay, so it's guest car livery. However, it's got his number on it. So Cracker Racing Team off position 13. Then we've got Glenn Miles and Spitwater Altima in 14. Josh Ben replacing another Ben Rhodes. A bit of a height difference between the two, so hopefully they got the same seat mould. And then off the rear of the grid, JB Courier in the JP Sim Shed ZB Commodore. Cars lining up. We're going to get ready for a start. Let's see how it goes.
Well, they are lining up on the start. Watch these quick guys at the back. Let's see how quickly they can clear the first few cars as we await the green flag. You've heard of wax on, wax off. Well, this is lights on. And now lights off. And Phil Boat got a horrible start. Oh, you got a bit of a jump.
Look at this. Rossi is jumping up the outside. What a move there. He angled the car and he was just going to go straight for it. Wow, look at that.
Look at this. It's 3 wide going into turn 1. And somehow Brenton Foley comes out the other side. He's a little bit wide. But what a move from Brendan Ross. He was forcing his way into the gap next door to Brenton Foley alongside the pit dividing wall. So a little bit of an ambitious move there. One of the HDS cars is off the back as well. I believe that might be Mitchell Hathaway who's gone a bit wide there.
Yeah, that's Hathaway. That's 99. So, he's just gotten on the grass and he can't get it back on from there because it's too tight a corner. Let's see how it's going now. Oh, bit of a slide from Foley.
Yeah, Foley hanging the rear out there through Honda hairpin. And you're right, it was Mitchell Hathaway who dropped all the way down to 7th. Will Devonish has moved up to 8th from his starting spot on the grid as well, and Ricky Slick down to 9th. Josh Ben already, look at him, he's up to P10. He started P15. He's flying up the order. JP Courier's made up 2 spots already, but Josh Ben, the man on the move, on lap number 1. He's gained a number of positions already, and he's right up behind Ricky Slick now. The lock up from Foley down into MG corner. PBF Race Engineering cars line astern. Watching brief from Brendan Ross at the moment. And Billy Douglas Solonga going with this lead group at the moment. So I guess we could call this lead group a group of 4. They are strung out a little bit, but they have got quite a gap to Termo, who's made a couple of positions up on the first lap as well. So great job from Termo. Mitchell Hathaway's clawed himself back to 6th on the opening lap here. The standing laps coming in are in the 140 bracket, the 141 bracket at the moment, actually. PBF cars just starting to kick away here. And now we've got a bit of a train forming. It's off the back of Mitchell Hathaway with Cam Rutledge and Will Devonish. The CRE cars line astern. Cam Rutledge actually out-qualified his more experienced teammate in Will Devonish. But look at the train starting to form behind. Hathaway just starting to break away now here. And Cam Rutledge is like a cork in a champagne bottle here. Yep, that is Ricky Slick. Now down the inside of Will Devonish. And he's going to get 2.
One deal here, one and tuppence. Here we go. And he's going to make it. He's going to make it around the outside possibly. He's done it. fantastic move there. Interesting to note that you can't really get too close in these sort of trains at Phillip Island because then you'll have problems getting into the mid corner. It'll understeer a lot. So as we go to the replay now, look at this move. Fantastic. He just fires it in there. He's clearly got the line through there. And it looks like Cam Rutledge, he didn't quite get a good run out of there. And he's just coming up through the inside and then he just gives it up there. So he knows that Matt Williams, he got a bit of a better run out of Honda Corner.
Yeah, the perennial place getter we call Matt Williams, aka Ricky Slick. And he's up one spot now from where he started. But have a look, Josh Ben is on the back of this as well. He's actually cleared Cam Rutledge, who, as you said, got a poor exit out of Honda Hairpin. Josh Ben is absolutely flying up to P9 already and on the back of Will Devonish, who's looking down the inside of Ricky Slick here. And Josh just plays the waiting card now and just hanging on just to see what was going to transpire. But these three have dropped Cam Rutledge a little bit now. He's falling back into the clutches of Steve Burko. JP Courier, meanwhile, he's moved up to 12th place overall from P16, so hasn't made the same sort of progress that Josh Ben has, but now Ricky Slick becomes the cork in the champagne bottle. Under pressure. And likewise behind, it's Cam Rutledge also under pressure. Now Steve Burko's right with him as well. He was having a bit of a, I wouldn't say, actually probably the right word is a gripe, that he was the lone FGX Falcon for a while, but obviously the Scuderia Alitalia cars have come along since then, only one tonight, so Dwayne Davies, the other one who runs the FG Falcon, but he's unfortunately out of action tonight, so Ford very much underrepresented in this field. As we work the back end now of lap 3, a little lock up from the cars ahead. Rutledge having to defend quite heavily here, and now Devonish is really applying the blowtorch to Matt Williams again here. If he can get a good exit out of this final corner, he will have a little nibble down the front straight, and that's a very, very nice exit, Hans. He's right in the slipstream here, and Matt's going to go defensive. Will hang it round the outside for turn 1. We spoke about being on the outside for 1 and then on the inside for 2. Look at this.
Oh, that's very dangerous through there, but he's managed to make it stick and he's going to get the inside. And I think that's going to be Josh Ben in the PBF Pro-Am car. He's going to try and get a nibble off Matt Williams as well. But Matt Williams, he's crisscrossed and he's going to go back and take his position back from Devonish. So he's on the preferred line into turn 3. As they go over that curb, they're all hugging that inside curb, and they're straightening up into turn 4 now.
Josh Ben, look at this, under brakes.
Ben
Can he get it
stopped
stopped? He can get it stopped, but it was a little bit of contact, but that was a very, very ambitious move because Will Devonish had got the job done at turn number 2, but he went wide on the apex, didn't get it back in time, and then Josh Ben fired it down the inside at the Honda hairpin. And let's see if we can pick this one up on the replay from the onboard cam. Oh yeah,
he had to move over. So he just wanted to go and play the defensive line, not necessarily blocking, but defensive. Sort of moving over, but he's still straight. So Josh Ben realised that, and he had to suddenly make a move. So I think that's what caused the lock up in the end.
Yeah, you're right, but it was a very, very ambitious move. In actual fact, Will Devonish has managed to get back under Josh Ben there while we were watching that on the replay. So he's gotten past the traffic that was probably going to be the easy ones to get past, and now he's met some resistance in two very well-seasoned veterans in Devonish and Ricky Slick. And behind, I think, as well, Cam Rutledge having to defend from Steve Burko on the inside line here for turn number 1. But let's see if he can get the job done on the inside. And Cam Rutledge actually thinks better of this and backs out of it, lets Steve Burko have P10. And just behind, just in back a shot there, man who started dead last, JP Courier. And speaking of dead last, it's Glenn Miles at the moment because he has not finished this race. Something's happened to him, and he is our first retiree of this race, and we're only 4 and a bit laps in.
Cam Rutledge is really struggling, isn't he? His car's not coming up at all, but as we watch this, look at this, he's gone around.
He has gone around. That's Matt Williams that's gone around, or Ricky Slick, and he's managed to recover. I don't think he got any assistance there. He's going to lose a bunch of positions, and Courier shoots through. Rutledge shoots through, so that's more positions for JP Courier. Let's have a look and see if we can pick this up. What happened? He Was that the hairpin?
Understeer, then
Yeah.
oversteer. There we go.
Too much gas. The important thing is he managed to keep it out of the wall, so no damage to that car. Maybe a little bit of side damage just with the contact that may have happened on the way through.
Yeah, that on his right front door. So hopefully that's not going to be an issue in the pit stop.
No, certainly not. They'll have to be very aware of that they don't need to repair that damage. That's one thing that AMS tends to do is automatically repair your damage when you come into the pits. You need to turn it off if you do not want it repaired for something so minor, otherwise it's going to add time to your stop. So down the inside here now, looking to make up another place, and that's easy pickings for Ricky Slick, and he now needs to focus on the cars ahead and picking up some more places and get back to that battle that was shaping up rather nicely. It was a very nice exchange between those three drivers, Ricky Slick, Will Devonish and Josh Ben. So that means Josh Ben moves up to P8 from P15, so a very, very nice return. And Courier now inside the top 10, having started rear of grid. Let's go up and have a look and see how our leaders are doing. Here we are. Brenton Foley's just eked out a margin about 1.5 seconds, but it's second and third that's the more interesting battle of the leading or the current podium sitters, with Phil Boak having the blowtorch applied for the better part of the last couple of laps by Brendan Ross.
Yeah, Brendan Ross, he went a little bit wide over Lukey Heights. So,
speaking of wide,
yeah, there you go.
Yeah, there was Phil Boak putting some wheels on the grass off the exit of turn 11, so he'll be a little bit compromised now. But Brendan Ross just needs to get the better exit. In fact, we're under a spinner in the background. Look at that, Billy Douglas Salonga, and he's...
Oh, we got the fence. Oh, and he's going to go over.
Oh, no, and he's collected his teammate. He's collected his teammate. What an absolute disaster. Those two cars are surely going to be wiped out of this race. Mitchell Hathaway, yeah, he's gone too. They're both gone. So that is an absolute disaster for HDS. So we saw what happened on the broadcast in the back of Billy Douglas Salonga. Let's have a look at what the view from his teammate was like. There it is, smoke, mirrors. Oh, he did everything he could to avoid it.
He's gone into one fence on the left and he's gone back into the right fence there. That's the Jason Bargwanna wall. We've seen Jason Bargwanna end up there a couple of times over the years. So also Mark Larkham as well. So, yeah, not a good place to be in real life or in the game. That's really paid HDS's chances tonight. A real shame.
Yeah, they are done and dusted, both cars. You've been waiting to slip that line in all night about the Jason Bargwanna Award, and you got your opportunity at, I would say for those drivers is an inopportune time, but, you know, to your credit, you managed to get it in. So those two drivers out of this race, and for Mitchell Hathaway being where he was in the points, that's a big fistful of points gone begging. Especially, as you said, early in the championship, you don't want to be throwing away too many of those points that early. Look, that accident wasn't his fault. He did everything he could to avoid it. He was probably about 2 or 3 feet away from avoiding the car, but unfortunately that is the way the cookie crumbles, or in this in this particular race, given it's close to Easter, how the chocolate egg crumbles.
Yeah, really unfortunate there. I think Hathaway is probably feeling that his wheels have sort of fallen off his wagon in terms of his championship tilt this year, but there's still a bit of time to recover. If not, you can get a couple of wins, surely.
Certainly is. That puts a lot of drivers into positions that they probably weren't expected to be. So one of the big movers, Josh Ben, where's he? Here he is. He's got some clean air at the moment. That's moved him up to P6. He's still behind Devonish. He's got some clean air to run in, which is good. And who's that behind? That's Steve Burko now under pressure from JP Courier. That's given him an incentive now too. Oh, this is a ballsy move at turn 3. If Burko was wide, so there was space there, but they'll stay where they were. Josh Ben locks up. No, they won't stay where they were because JP Courier is up the inside and he's not far enough alongside, I don't think, to get this move done by Siberia. Burko's going to have the inside line, forces Courier wide, and now just gives him some space. So that's fair racing, but now the next left-hander goes to Steve Burko. The following right-hander goes to Courier. They're side-by-side through Hayshed. Oh, that's a beautiful exchange. There's not more than a cigarette paper's width between them on the change of direction, as they got smoke signals up ahead, which will be from Josh Ben's Commodore. But now Courier comes out of that exchange with P7. Great exchange between those two drivers. Courier and Burko. They gave each other space, and beautiful, beautiful driving.
Yeah, it's a very, very ding-dong sort of battle at the moment, but I think JP Courier has the upper hand right now. He's starting to pull a couple of car lengths gap over Steve Burko, and we've got a problem for Steve Burko. That's going to be an engine failure.
That certainly is an engine failure. That is a very, very odd place to have an engine failure. Did he just come down on the gear shift instead of going up a gear? We will never know, but that means he is going to be out of this race. Let's see if we can listen in from the onboard. Yep, there it is. Change down instead of changing up, and she is done.
That's really unfortunate. A very simple mistake right there, and really put paid to his chances tonight. Unfortunately, he was having a really good run, and we were seeing some really good battles that Burko was in, but sadly not to be tonight. And that's big fat zero for him in this single feature race format.
He was level with points on Ricky Slick as well, by virtue of the little penalty he had out of Simmons Plains. So that will mean if Ricky Slick stays where he is, or stays on the road rather, he will pick up points and will move clear of that battle for those positions in the standings. So Josh Ben now P6, Courier P7, and they've got a little bit of daylight to Will Devonish at the moment. So Devonish just managed to kick away from Josh Ben at the moment, comfortably holding down P5. Termo probably the standout that we probably weren't expecting at the moment. He's sitting in P4. He's quite a margin off the back of the top three, but he's just going about his own business. In actual fact, Brendan Ross, what's happened to Brendan Ross? He just quickly slipped down the order there. So he come into the pits. Yes, he has. It's the first of our stoppers. So this is lap 9. So start getting your strategy calculator out now. So he's trying to split this race up into a little bit of a different method compared to everybody else, and he gets going. In actual fact, he comes out in some clean air, so that's probably a very, very wise idea to stop when he did. Found a gap to slot into. Now he can just focus on running his own race. Maybe he's looking for the undercut on Phil Boak. Now let's see if we pick up Phil Boak if he elects to respond. He's down at Siberia. In actual fact, he's been constantly losing touch with his teammate for a little while now. The gap has yawed out substantially. It says 1.3 seconds there, but it is definitely a lot more. Let's see if he responds, because if he's going to respond, he probably needs to come in the next 1 or 2 laps, because Brendan Ross was not far behind. And the undercut could very well be in play here. Brendan Ross has got, what's he got that on the timing screen? He's got 8 seconds before he encounters Cam Rutledge, so he's got plenty of time and plenty of space to work into. And Boak looks like Boak's going for another lap, so this might play into the hands of Brendan Ross. I mean, everyone's going to have to stop twice, Hans, or at least twice if they don't get any safety car intervention. So this might very well play into the hands of Brendan Ross. And in actual fact, it looks like some other drivers may very well be stopping, because Brendan Ross has advanced up to P9 now on our standings. So I got a funny feeling we've got more drivers in the pit lane or have come into the lane. Mike Coulston's had an issue, and a couple of others may have just had some issues. Looks like they might have stopped, but they didn't actually stop. They may have just dropped down the order by virtue of falling off the road. So a little bit premature, but let's start counting. So Brendan Ross could probably go as far, if we're talking a 17 lap stint for fuel, if he's going for a fuel mileage here, we're talking somewhere around the mid-20s that he's going to be in. Probably around lap 25, 26 will be as far as he could go. So that's not a bad idea. It's a long middle sector of the race if he can do that, and then a sort of a 14-lap sprint toward the end. So not breaking it up close to exact, but he's at least going on a different sort of a strategy compared to everybody else right now.
Yeah, the problem is you're going to have one tank to fill up in the stop, and then you've got to have a little bit less than a tank. So that depends where you take that a little bit less, and what Brendan Ross has done is decided to take that on lap 9, lap 10. So we'll see if that pays off for him, but we've got the 2 PBF cars at the front. They've got a bit of a different strategy going. They're going to go all the way. They're going to probably blaze until about lap 15, 16, 17. And then they're going to come in and try and where they are going to put that extra sort of couple of litres of fuel sort of thing. we don't know yet. So that's going to pan out soon.
It certainly will, and we've just got to be careful as well if they're going to go that long that they're going to have a little bit of drop off on their tyres too. Now they're unsighted to us while we were just talking about the strategy there. Josh Ben has ceded position number 5 to JP Courier, so Josh Ben up 9 places, Courier up 11, and playing himself into a nice haul of points here. It stops the way they are. Now he's 4.7 seconds off at the back of Devonish, and Devonish closing in on Termo as well. So here's the gap. You can see the gap is it's under a second now. Termo's just been going about his business quite nicely, but if he starts to defend a little bit, which he is entitled to do, that might very well start giving Courier an incentive to close in on the pair of them and play himself nicely into potentially what could be a long-term podium spot, depending obviously what happens to Brendan Ross. Ben, what have you learnt from the pits so far? A very, very early stop for Brendan Ross. Is there any signs of any more coming?
No signs, I think, of any more coming. I have managed to talk to a few of the drivers on why there has been DNFs. There was no chat, unfortunately, from Dougal Salonga and Hathaway, although reports are that they are sharing, they are next to each other in the hospital beds, so that's at least they are a team to the end. Glenn Miles, he was very succinct in his description of what happened, and to directly quote, "I died." So rip to Glenn Miles there. And Steve Burko actually is running a H pattern shifter on his setup, so that was the issue. That was why he blew his engine. He went for either went from 4th to 5th or 5th to 6th, and instead caught 3rd or 4th instead. So it was an upshift that became a downshift, and that was what happened. Just commentating on the lead, I think Boak has improved his setup. We saw at Adelaide that he was running a setup that fell off quite quickly. That doesn't seem to be so much of an issue, but it's potential that because Josh Ben is running a modified setup from the early rounds, that he is having the same issues that Boak had at Adelaide, where after the first 5 or so laps, his tyres really start to take a bullet, and that's why hampering his run further up the lead, further up the points. But I'll fly back to the garages and see if I can pick up any more for you.
No worries, thanking you. And in discussions with you there, we did see Termo come in to the pit lane, and also Ricky Slick coming in to take on fuel and tyres. So a very short stop for Termo actually. So maybe going for a slightly shorter middle stint. And as we're cycling through, we didn't get a chance to see who was off the road somewhere in our travels as well. But Will Devonish didn't have to wait too long to get past Termo, because Termo came into the pits, and out in front it's still the PBF cars, and as you called, Hans, they're still blazing along at the moment, so they're getting to the end of their fuel window at the moment. Now they're not going to want to come in together. I believe that some drivers may be sharing pit booms, so they'll have to be careful if that is the case. Foley in a league of his own at the moment, just going about his business nice and smooth. He actually has got the luxury here of being able to just lift and coast a little bit, save a little bit of fuel, those extra couple of 100 mils as you were talking about, which means it's a slightly shorter fill toward the back end of the race, as you can progress that fuel a little bit more. And we've lost Brendan Ross. So what's happened here? Brendan Ross is he's out of this race. Yeah. Have we got anything on the replay? No, we don't. So that's a disappointment. So Ben will be off trying to find out what's happened to Brendan Ross here, I would say.
So unfortunately, we can't get to see whether that undercut works or not. So we've got the PBF cars, they're blazing along, and they're probably going to come into the pits in the next 2 or 3 laps. So that depends where they put their sort of half fill, so to speak. So are they going to do it in this stop, or are they going to half fill it at the end of the race and then blaze on there? They could just half fill it at the end, and then they'll get onto new tyres, and then they've got fresh tyres to be able to blaze on. So we're going to see which strategy they go for in the end.
Well, we might have a stopper here, and it looks like we do. Will Devonish coming in from 3rd place. What about JP Courier? No, he keeps going. So this will now be interesting to see if Will Devonish can extend his margin he had over JP Courier. Had about nearly 4.5 seconds before the stop. Can he get in and out? And the question will be how long Devonish opts to make this second stint. He's coming in at the back end, at the end of lap 14, so got close to his fuel window. And Courier, I think probably the smart strategy for him is to go as long as possible. Given he started at the back, if the safety car came out now, he would come in, he would probably top all the way up, and then he ends up with a very, very short fill at the end of this race, with probably maybe only less than a dozen laps to go, and he would probably actually be in a very, very nice position, being the car in the field that has the freshest tyres and also the upper hand on strategy. But strategy now being starting to be dictated, I guess, by what's been happening out in front. Now, we might have Foley in this lap, judging by the little symbol we have above the number 1 for his position. In fact, Boak's closed up a fair bit here, so is Foley just struggling a little bit on tyres? He did make mention that there was some trouble, and he is coming in. He did make mention that he was struggling with tyre performance towards the end of his stint, and he's done 15 laps. His teammate will now lead this race, at least for 1 lap. And Courier going for another lap as well. So looks like he's going right to the end of the fuel window here.
So Courier, his strategy is just he wants to get as much time out on the road as possible. He's got track position, and it's easier to defend when you've got track position. So his strategy is based on he wants to be in front of everyone else, and if there is an undercut issue, he wants to get in front of them straight away. So that's why he's still blazing along at the moment. So let's see if Phillip comes in the next lap or not. We've also seen Josh Benny's probably made a stop as well. So Josh Benny's down in 8th position. He might have filled a little bit longer, and he's split from his Will Devonish. He's split by Cracker down the middle. So Will Devonish and Josh Ben, they were having a battle before, but now they've sort of fallen behind.
That's it. JP Courier will be interesting to see where he falls out in this battle as well, because Devonish's got clean air. Again, he's behind Termo, so Termo stopped before Devonish, and he actually retains position ahead of Devonish, and for the moment it looks like Phil Boak will be in this lap as well, so consecutive pit stops on consecutive laps for the PBF Race Engineering Commodores. And we're getting news. Ricky Slicker's also out of this race as well. So, again, we've missed that in the stops as well. So, he's out as well. Word on the ground is that Brendan Ross has done an engine. Not sure what's happened to Ricky Slick, but there's very high attrition rate out of the 16 runners. We've already lost 6, so not a good sign. And Courier definitely going right to the end of the fuel window here. We thought he might have been in this lap, but no, he's going to go one more. He's going to drain that tank almost to fumes. We did talk that you could get about 17 laps on a tank, and the fuel burns roughly around 6.3 to 6.5 litres a lap. It is elevated. It's a ×2 fuel usage and a ×2 tyres to force the pit stops.
I hope his scavenge tank has 8 litres in it, his scavenge pot. So team will be on the radio to him and say, your pot's full or your pot's empty, come in now, please.
Or 88 is coming down to Siberia now, so he will be in this lap. Now let's see where everything's panned out. So Foley and Boak have come out line astern here, and Courier's registering as 3rd position, which is not right. He's actually ahead on, or is he? Has he missed a marshal point or something, or a time point? Because he's dropping down the order. Something's not right with our timing. So hopefully when he gets round to the pits, it's still showing he shows him as the leader. All right, so
it's definitely ahead.
Yeah, he definitely was. So let's wipe the sweat off our brows after that one, because that was a little heart-stopping moment. Now, AMS does that from time to time. If you go off circuit and you miss a timing point, it ends up putting you a lap down. So I was worried for a minute he was falling through the timing screens. But nonetheless, he is the leader, and he is into the pits. And there's actually someone else in the pits just ahead of him as well, and that's Josh Ben. So he actually didn't stop as we thought. He may have had some sort of an issue, but this will now cycle the lead back to Brenton Foley, and it'll cycle 2nd place back to Phil Boak. Now where's Termo? So he's out of the final corner now, pursued by Devonish, although that gap is probably a little bit bigger than what it was when they came in for their stops. It definitely was closer. And Courier's got to drive through penalty, so that has got to be probably for a pit lane speeding infringement. So that all that hard work from the back of the grid has just been undone. And by the time he's come out in P5, and let's see where the rest of the drivers are as we cycle through. So Cam Rutledge.
Josh Ben, DNF.
And Josh Ben is out as well, so trouble for Josh Ben. So we're getting to the point where this field has been trimmed in half nearly. Very, very, very high attrition rate. Very unsure why. So Cam Rutledge is down at turn 1, so Courier's down at turn 4. So that'll be touch and go if Courier's to serve this penalty when he turns under green, which he has to do. Where he comes out, he may come out behind Rutledge. The pit lane speed limit, if memory serves me correctly, here is about 40 kilometres an hour at Phillip Island in real life. Not sure what it is in AMS, but we hope it'd probably be about the same thing, and that will be very, very touch and go. In actual fact, Rutledge, I think, is taking out some time over Courier as well, so it definitely will be very, very close. Coulston, Gary Neville very close for 7th and 8th. Last of the classified finishers, or classified runners at the moment, is Cracker in P9. So Ben Rhodes going to be down in the pit lane working on what on earth has happened to some of these drivers, because Ben, we've lost quite a number of drivers in quick succession. We lost Brendan Ross, Ricky Slick and Josh Ben in the space of a few laps, and rumour is that, especially for Brendan Ross, it might have been an engine again.
Yeah, Rossi did an engine. We're not sure what happened to Ricky Slick, but I come up here partially as well. One of my other roles here this weekend has been since the start of the season, is team boss for PBF Pro-Am. And a couple of mad radio chatters, and we had a slight pit issue where the team forgot to put tyres on the car. And it turns out that Josh does not have did not know which button he had mapped, if he had one mapped at all, for selecting through his pit windows to be able to choose to put tyres on the car. And unfortunately, he jumped out of the game to find the control schemes, and in the process, the game has DNF'd him. So he was keen to keep going, but he actually suffered a puncture after his first pit stop, which you did see, and you did call correctly. That was where he picked up fuel but couldn't pick up tyres, and he came back around to pick up tyres again. But we've seen drivers have it before, issues navigating pit menus, and I suspect we won't see it. It won't be the last time we see it either. But look, from the point of view of the team boss, he's had great pace. We just have to work on those pit stops. The way with things looking, I'll be back for Barbagallo, but we might have a spot open for him, and we're keen to have him, I would say, based on his pace. So that's why Josh Ben is out. So we're now just down to 9 runners.
Well, we are down to 9 runners, and while we were on the horn with you there, Ben, Courier came in to serve a drive-through penalty and then copped another one. So he's not having a very, very good second stint. Drove brilliantly to get up as high as he did for his first stint, but now I think he's just going to try and put some laps down and then come in and serve another one. Very, very odd. The pit lane entries are clearly marked, and the speed limiter is clearly marked, and he's done it twice in 2 laps. Not good, Hans, not good at all.
No, definitely not good. I think what's happening is that it's breaking into wheel spin every time he gets off the pit limiter. So then what happens, it's probably going just above the 40k, and then it's giving him a penalty. So that's probably on the white line where the pit lane speed limit area ends, and he's going to go around here. Oh, this is an absolute disaster for Courier.
No, well, he's at the point of the circuit where it's the return road off of turn 4, where he could just hang a left here and go into the pit lane or into the pits if you wanted to retire the car, but he's not going to do that. But now he's surrendered 5th place to Cam Rutledge, so that puts CRE Motorsport 4th and 5th on the road. And
probably put him behind Coulston and maybe Neville.
No, Coulston and Neville are a fair way off. And
he serves the penalty.
When he served the penalty before, he came out probably about 2 seconds ahead of Rutledge, and he had about a 23-second gap. So the transit time through pit lane's roughly about 20 to 22 seconds, somewhere in that region. But he's still can salvage some points out of this. He's still up 10 positions from the back of the grid. He just needs to serve the penalty, get it over and done with, and be done with it. Now, this is his second lap, and you get 3 laps to serve your drive-through penalty. So we'll keep an eye on that.
Interesting to note, hashtag I am driven on the rear wing. He's going to need a bit of drive to get to the front. And
He's actually been disqualified.
Yeah, there you go. So disqualification. I was going to say cars for hope on the rear wing as well. On the other side, he's going to need a bit of hope as well.
Yep. So
but it's definitely not going his way.
It definitely didn't go his way. He did really well in that first stint. He was absolutely flying, and now has been disqualified for failing to serve a drive-through penalty. Now I'm actually wondering whether or not what happened is correct, because he obviously came in to serve that drive-through penalty. He obviously did serve it, got served with another one. I'm just wondering whether or not it's added all those together, and the one that he came through the pits and then got served again actually gave him, didn't actually count that particular lap. So most unusual. Now, what's Foley done here? Because Foley's down the order. He's behind Turmo now, so sight unseen, something happened to Brenton Foley. Now, he can't have come into the pits and topped off with fuel, because he can't make it home from here. So I think he's had an issue and fallen off the road somewhere, and he's now surrendered the lead to Phil Boak, and he's now behind Turmo, who's into P2, and Devonish was closing in on Turmo, so this now makes this battle for the podium places a rather juicy one at the moment. All 3 of them have stopped. They're all on different strategies, and all very, very racy. Now, Turmo's gone wide here.
It's a shame for Turmo. I was just thinking what I'm going to say. I'm going to think, oh, Steve, guess what? Look at Turmo. He's got a bloody good run at the moment. So, Turmo, he has been a little bit of the star of this race. He's up in 4th now. I mean, he's fallen back from 2nd. So, he's race high of 2nd, but now he's settling back to 4th. He's behind Devonish now. Let's see what he's got for him. He's trying to straighten up, and he's just going to go, oh, perhaps he's got a tyre issue, actually. Maybe he's got a tyre issue that's causing him a bit of trouble. So let's see how he's going to go and try and get the spot back off Devonish.
Well, it's most unusual to see Foley in between these guys, and drop of a hat. Turmo makes a little mistake down at Honda Hairpin, and the race for 2nd place now becomes, well, a non-race for 2nd place, because Foley's got 2nd place and he's disappearing away from Devonish at the moment. And Turmo settling into 4th place. And not very many other battles going on down the field at the moment. Cracker having also gone a lap down. He's past the halfway point in this race now. And it's Phil Boak from Brenton Foley having made some sort of a mistake. Will Devonish is now up to P3. Turmo 4th. Cam Rutledge 5th. Mike Coulston 6th for Scuderia Alitalia. Gary Neville, the lone PBF, sorry, it's not a PBF, the lone FCR motorsport car in 7th, and although he's 1 lap down, Cracker is still classified, and he's currently 8th. He's the last of the classified runners, and we have only got half our original field that started running at the moment, so the highest amount of attrition we've seen, I think, probably since Adelaide, Hans.
Yeah, and Adelaide was a very technical circuit. We think that I think it's just a whole bunch of pit issues and a whole bunch of tyres and fuel and all that sort of stuff. So, I mean, and a lot of bad luck as well. No fault by anyone. But we are at the critical lap marker now. 23 is the lap that you have to pit and get a full tank of fuel to make it to the end. Let's see if anyone is going to take the opportunity. We're not seeing any wrench symbols appearing on anyone's timing monitors at the moment. And yeah, Boak and Foley are going again.
Oh,
and
here we go.
Coming in. So here we go. Turmo, he's going to go with that strategy. Let's see how it goes.
Well, he's in the lane right now, and he was the very, very first stopper, and he gets to stop before the line by the looks of things, which is good. And the critical lap number for Turmo. So it was a 9-lap. I think it was a 9-lap opening stint, or 9 or 10 lap opening stint from Turmo, and then he's put down another, 12 or 13 laps, or 14 laps since then, and he's going to get enough fuel to get to the end. Now, he took on, it didn't look like he was stationary for very long there, so maybe he did take a little bit more fuel at his first stop, and
maybe
he was just
fuel only in this one. But the fact is that if he's just got up to if he did the short stint in the middle and he's got back up to a full tank now, he can go. He can run to the end, but question mark over whether he has tires on that car. So he might be trying to go with the save time in the pit lane strategy. We got a question from Walshy. What happened to Ricky's sleep? We're not sure, mate. We're trying to work on it, and we've sent our roving pit reporter out to see if he can find that for you. Hopefully, Benjamin Rhodes comes back with an answer. As watching on screen, Castrol Turbo Racing, number 715 Nissan Altima. He's still in fourth at the moment. So if that strategy does work, he's going to benefit here because Phil Bogue is only roughly 33 seconds up the road. So not sure of the transit time in pit lane, but if he's got to take a lot of fuel on, he's going to be waiting a very long time in the pit box. They're coming up to some lap traffic now. They give him plenty of room. He's just going past Gary Neville, and that's going to be Coulston. He's already gone a lap down. He's already been lapped by Phil Bogue. So Brent and Foley were coming around to lap him as well.
Yep, lights on for the number one to let him know that he's coming, and that's a very, very sensible move there for Mike Coulston, but he actually might cede position, and he does, to Gary Neville, so that was a bit inopportune for Mike Coulston. He just left the door wide open, and Gary said, "Don't mind if I do," and he came through and picked his pocket, as one would say.
That was absolutely savage, wasn't it? I was just going to say he can't slow down too much because he's in a battleable position with Gary Neville. So, we've got word from Steve Burko. Go, Mike. The last Ford standing. I agree, mate. Go, Mike.
Absolutely. And I'd also like to give a shout out there to Steve Burko, going the old school H-pattern shifter. You know, nowadays the modern supercar has the sequential shifter, and going very, very old school. I love it. But it's just a bit of bad luck.
But at this circuit, you can't really cheat the gear change on the way down. You do get into turn 2 and you go from 5th to 3rd, and then maybe into turn 4 you go 5th to 2nd. So also at MG corner, I think you go 4th to 2nd as well. So if you give it a nice big blip, you give it a bit of a buzz, it goes on the rev limiter and it makes a nice sound, doesn't it?
It does, and Brock Harvey, no stranger to buzzing it on the down change. He did that a few times in Supercars competition last year in AMS Oz, and he's done it probably once or twice in some other series as well. But the PBF cars are still going, so Boak and Foley now separated by 5.5 seconds or thereabouts. Foley recovering from whatever indiscretion he had that was unsighted to us. And Devonish has dropped off the back a bit here. And where's Termo? So he's just come across the line now. So he's doing times that are in the 33s. So that was his last lap. So that's a respectable lap time. 29 seconds off of the back of Devonish. It'll be interesting to see what time Devonish does when he comes across the line this time around. Because he's been on a different strategy to Termo. He stopped a little bit later, so therefore he can go a little bit deeper into this race if he so chooses, but strategy is of his choosing.
I reckon Bogue, if he gets above that sort of 40-second bracket, I reckon he'll be safe from Termo, from the undercut. So at the moment, Foley and Devonish, they're not quite far enough up ahead from Termo. They're going to come out on the road somewhere next to him. So, then they'll have to pass him on the track, which makes it really hard. But Termo, let's hope that he can get the undercut because it's going to make it very entertaining. We're going to see him on old tyres but a full tank of fuel, and he's going to go all the way to the end. But we're going to see Foley and Devonish possibly on new tyres, and they've only got the half fill, the short fill.
Well, 33.8 for Foley that time around, 33.9, almost to 34 for Devonish. So Termo is actually doing lap times that are similar to these gentlemen out in front at the moment, and obviously he's got a heavier car and new tyres on the car, but he's got more fuel on board than what his two rivals ahead of him do. Let's see what the time is this time around, because if he's matching him on a lap time, he's actually setting himself up rather nicely here. Actually, that's a 33 dead, so that's his best lap as well. So he's actually playing himself in quite nicely here, Hans, in terms of the pit lane transit time is. Even if you're doing just a run through the pit lane, it's about 20 to 22 seconds, plus your stop. This will be very, very tight. when Devonish and Foley elect to stop. But keeping in mind, they're going to have, depending on where they come in, we suspect they're going to be in, looks like
Oh, here we
Devonish,
go. He's gonna have to come in. So the problem is with Devonish right now. If he kept blazing on, he clearly can't blaze on because he's got the fuel light coming on. But the thing is, if he was blazing on, that would make him lose even more time to Turmo because his lap speed is absolutely nowhere. The tyre drop off and tyre degradation is so great around here that he's making no lap speed at all. He's just losing bucket loads of pace everywhere. So he's going to come in now and he's going to fill it right up. So let's see how that goes and how that will turn out. But I think, my bet, I hasten to add, I'm not a betting man, but I would say that Turmo is going to come out ahead of Devonish.
I think you might be right here, Hans. I think you might be very well right. Who's that going through there? That's Gary Neville going through. Devonish driving through all the pit boxes, and he's taking on tyres, and he will be taking on fuel. Now, he won't have to fill it right up because he's got, 13 laps to go, so he can take a little bit less fuel. Here's Turmo. Turmo's coming down to main straight now, and he's on the inside there, and he goes through. So was very, very tight, but some good lap times from Turmo. That time was actually a 9/10 slower than his best, so he has gotten past Devonish. In actual fact, he's got quite a nice margin as well. Brief yellow flag there at turn 2. Not sure what that was for. Now it's
sorry, Steve. Go ahead.
And now it's over to, I was about to say, now it's over to Brenton Foley to decide what strategy he wants to employ. Now he's got 31 seconds over Turmo. Devonish had 29, and Devonish just came out behind. So Foley's probably got he'd be a lot closer, but he probably needs another second or two just to be comfortable, just to make that stop and retain position.
If Devonish has new tyres on that car, I reckon that might bring him back a bit closer to Turmo. But the problem is Turmo is ahead of him on the road. And we're getting to the stage of the race where he's going to be very defensive. So if the yield from that tyre is not enough for Devonish to get past quite easily, what's going to happen is that's going to be like Rick Kelly's Altima on the weekend in the Supercars race. It's going to be the widest Nissan Altima out there. So we're going to see... It's going to be an enthralling battle. He's catching right up him now, so we're going to see a bit of that tyre yield now. But if it goes, say, to about lap 35 and he can't get past, then it's going to be a real struggle for him because in that last 5 laps, then we sort of say, yeah, you can block a little bit, you can be a bit more defensive because we're playing for keeps here.
That's right. And as you said, he's going to need to make use of these fresh tyres. And we did see the car go up on the jacks for Will Devonish in the pit lane. So he has got tyres of some degree. Now, whether that's 4 tyres or whether it's just rears only or working side only, as we were talking earlier in the broadcast, he has got to put those tyres to good effect, and to good effect rather soon, because the longer he leaves it, the more these drivers' tyres will start to equalise out. Now, Turmo did stop a number of laps earlier than Will Devonish, so in any way you look at it, he has got newer rubber, no matter how old the tyres are. But when they're fresh and they're green and you've got all that grip available, he's got to maximise, because then, as you said, he can afford to defend a little bit fairly, and making one move, no moving under braking, any of that sort of stuff. But he has got the luxury of doing it. Now they're catching up to the back, rather, of Gary Neville through these sweeping sections past the Hayshed and over Lukey Heights. Now they're catching up to him at a vast rate of knots, going rather slow over the top of Lukey Heights. Now, how is this going to play out? Devonish looking to the inside. Turmo's on the outside. Got balked a bit there, I think, by Gary Neville, who goes off into the grass, and Devonish around the outside. So that was actually rather uneventful in the end.
Yeah, I think Turmo's run was sort of cruelled by Gary Neville in the way. But unfortunately, this might be his tyre life. It might be dropping off to the point that he might not be able to get back up past Devonish. So as we're watching, so he sort of had nowhere to go, and what happened was that he was on the outside, and Devonish decided that he was going to fire it right in there, and it was an opportune time to do it, like you're saying, because he needed to maximise that new tyre advantage. And here we go. Speaking of, Turmo is back in front of Devonish, so perhaps the tyre's not falling off as badly as we thought.
No, having another crack at it there. So just while we're on the replay there, missed on the broadcast. Now they're trying to go side by side through turn 3. That's very, very brave. Devonish comes out the other side though. So let's see if we've got this one on the replay as to where that happened. And it looks like, just as we were cutting to the replay, he actually hung it around the outside. We'll actually just wind it back a little bit so you can see this. And this is just a little feature that we don't use from time to time, but you can see what happened. And as we go backwards, he actually managed to hang it around the outside of turn 1. Here we go.
Look at that. Fantastic.
Oh.
Wow. Yeah, and you dead set could not fit a cigarette paper between them. Oh, we've said it a couple of times tonight, but that was so close, like you would not believe.
And then he just struggled to get it turned in for the second part of turn 2. So, and then allowed Devonish back underneath him. So great exchange from these two.
It's probably his run was into turn 2 was a little bit too good. He couldn't quite get it stopped in the end. So let's see if Termo can get back on the rear bar of Devonish. But it looks like now perhaps the tyres are not quite up to scratch at the moment.
Now, I reckon in that exchange, Foley potentially and Boak potentially may have stopped as well, because the gaps that they now have over Devonish and Boak are not huge. In actual fact, Boak has extended his margin out over his teammate to 9.3 seconds. So it was around the 5-second mark a couple of laps ago. Foley has dropped right back here. And the only real battle at the moment on track is, or from what we can see here, is Devonish and Termo. And Termo dropping back ever, so slightly every sector by sector. He's losing time.
Has Boak pitted yet?
I think he has. It looks like he has, because if you look at the times that they're doing, Foley and Boak had to have stopped, because we were talking before about how far Termo was behind Foley and Devonish originally. And Devonish came out just ahead with the stops, and then the margins have come back a little bit. So the margins have grown just generally by lap, but also they have to have been in and stopped, because otherwise the gaps would have been nearly 40-45 seconds to those two cars out in front. So as we wind through the order, we'll see where they are. So Phil Boak, he's got 9 laps to run now as he crosses the line now, and he's our race leader. Brenton Foley has now trimmed the margin. Actually, I think that probably might have been just to do with where the stops were playing out. He's trimmed the margin. Now it's actually 4.4, so timing was a little bit deceiving there. Will Devonish now third outright and is pulling away from Termo, who's had a great run. And I think if he keeps going the way he is, it'll be his season best finish. Cam Rutledge is in P5, and he's coming in for his final stop, and Cracker just ahead of him. I think it is. Yep. And
Let's have a look at the battle at the pit crews here.
Yep, so Cracker is ahead on the track, but he is a lap down to Cam Rutledge. And then you've got P7 Mike Coulston and Gary Neville P8, the last two runners. So Cracker with one of the earlier garages, and Mike Coulston actually going through to take P6 from Cracker, and Cam Rutledge just ahead. So we'll stay with the battle here, battle of the pit crews, and probably about even, I would say. They came in nose to tail, and they're coming out in the same fashion, but it'll be immediate blue flags for Cracker. And I'm sure he'll do the right thing here and let Cam Rutledge through on the inside, and he does.
Positive signs for Cracker, though. His pit crew is very good. If he was only a little bit further up, he could have made that stick.
Absolutely. Well, while we've got a lull in proceedings here, we'll go over to our roving pit reporter. Ben, what is news on the ground?
Yeah, not a lot. It now been the critical phase of the race. A lot of drivers had closed down their chat channels. As per always, I've struggled to get info. Other people have put info. The closest I've got for for the slick is that he did crash out. I've got no idea where though. And the FCR channels are always a hard one to get into at the best of times. And after a crash for the lead driver, normally it's very hard to get into. Termo also has locked down his chat. The only people I've got to chat to, for the most part, is Mike Coulston and there was actually one other. I do forget, but yeah, Mike Coulston is one of the few guys I got to chat to, but they're also focused. But swung by the PBF race channel just quickly before, and yep, they did both pit. Brenton Foley pitted the end of lap 29, Phil Boak the end of lap 30, both with enough fuel to get into the end.
Beautiful. So they are going to the finish, and they have split up that strategy. And Brenton Foley was talking to me before the race commenced and was very, very vocal about it was going to be a tyre strategy race, not a fuel strategy race. So they probably played their cards just right. They used the strategy just to see how far they could get with a full tank of fuel, and they've split that up quite nicely, and gives them a nice even pair of second stint and third stints to get to the checkered flag. Let's cross over and have a look at our race leader. So Phil Boak across the line doing 34.5, Foley 32.3. So he's honing in like a missile on the back of his teammate right now. He's chopping into that lead. Since the last time we saw him, he's chopped 2 seconds out of that advantage. So could we see a little bit of argy-bargy between the teammates before this is out, or are we going to see some team orders like we did in Simmons Plains for that second race, Hans, where they finished 1-2?
Steve, I reckon, it's been dominant performance by them, and as always, it's as a race team, it's a very good problem to have. Which of your two drivers is going to take out the win? But I don't think there'll be team orders today because we've got two very competitive cars and very competitive. We've got one fairly buried in the standings at the moment, so he wants to be able to make it up. But we've got one leading the standings, so conversely, two sides of the same coin. Who's going to win? Is it going to be car 1 or car 015? So, I reckon they're going to battle it out, and hopefully it is nice and clean. We have seen them sort of go rubbing as racing before, but I reckon today it will be a little bit more cleaner.
I think so. And just noticing as well, Termo has dropped right off the back of Devonish as well. So have a look at the margin there on the left-hand side. It was only a couple of seconds. It now reads 42 off the race lead, which means he's quite a substantial margin, 34 off the back of Devonish. So something has happened to Termo, probably another stop or an issue, and then he's need to come into the lane to rectify. But now it starts to get really, really, really close, and Boak's under a little bit of pressure because he locks up into turn number 1, which sends him a little bit wide for turn 1, and now he's going to struggle to get the car turned in for turn number 2. You can see the difference in the attitude of the car as Foley's right up on the curb. Boak's well off the apex. Now here's one of the prime passing opportunities in the pinch point. Foley to the inside.
Oh, he's come from a long way back and he's made it stick. So he's clearly got some better tyre life.
I reckon that Boak might have rolled out of that. I think he probably rolled out of that because that looked very, 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 very early on the brakes. We'll see if we can pick this up on replay. Here we go. As we flick to the onboard from the bumper, let's have a listen. Yeah, he rolled out. He definitely rolled out, and Foley, just for a bit of show, decided to show us a little bit of drifting around that corner. But no, Boak appears to me like he rolled out of the throttle there, knew it was coming, and just said, nope, I'll settle for second place. I'm ahead of my teammate in the standings. There is no point fighting this.
Yeah, I think also the tyre life as well is probably not that great on the 015 because we're seeing that Foley is sort of skipping away ever so slightly. It's probably going to be around 1 second over the line. Let's have a look.
Close enough.
Oh, not quite. So it's eight tenths of a second. He might be just. I think the last lap probably wasn't that great because he had to go the non-preferred line.
I think you're right there. Well, we got 5 laps to run here, and it's a bit hard when there's not very many battles in the field to focus on, especially since half the field has not finished this race as they're lapping Mike Coulston for the second time in Scuderia Alitalia Ford.
A bit of banter about the Scuderia Alitalia FGX. Why did they choose the FGX? I think we all know why.
Well, I think we all know why, but why don't you enlighten us why?
Well, it's like look at the rear wing end plates on it. It's nearly as big as an Alitalia tail, isn't it?
Well, in this category, I think with the way that the FGX Falcon was and the VF Commodore was as well, they all had very, very similar sort of end plates. I mean, if you're comparing it to a Mustang in the Supercars Championship nowadays, it would be a lot bigger than an Alitalia tail, wouldn't it?
Yeah, it would be, but imagine if you had a Mustang in the Super 2. Once you get that Scuderia Alitalia, you can paint the big, the green the green, white, red A on the side of the end plate, and it'll just look like the tail of an Alitalia aircraft. It's fantastic.
Yeah, and there'd be room to spare as well. Well, they've done a good job to get those cars onto the grid, Mike Coulston and Brian Walsh, and I think actually Lewis Wedding did a really good job in helping get the liveries sorted as well, if memory serves me correctly. They definitely did have some help to get those done. Anyway, he's 2 laps down, but he's still running around, which is the important thing here. As we cycle back to our leaders to see how it's going, and Foley's now kicked on from Phil Boakes. He's got a 1.7 second margin coming up to Cracker and some lap traffic at the moment. So on the exit Siberia, so then the next man along would be Gary Neville. If they can get to him before this race is out, they very may well. He's a bit further up the field, and Devonish is just going about his business in 3rd place, hoping that one of these drivers ahead falls off the road. Termo, we don't know what happened to him, but he was looking very, very strong for the better part of that race and running a good strategy, and it's all fallen to pot in this final stint. Let Devonish by, got past him again, let him go again, and has either come in for another stop or he's made some sort of mistake that's put him well off the back, and 4th, despite the fact it will be his best season finish. It's a very lonely 4th place, much like lonely Will Devonish's 3rd place for the last portion of this race. Same can probably be said about Cam Rutledge. He's driven quite well, having out-qualified his teammate at the beginning of the race. Still 1 position up from where he started, and good haul of points, and a good stack for his championship as well. With a bit of luck coming up in the next couple of rounds, he can certainly advance his position. He's actually improved a hell of a lot from last year, Cam Rutledge, and I think also given Devonish coming on board to become a force instead of a 2 solo cars as privateers. They're now a 2-car team, and Cam has come along in leaps and bounds since last season, and driving very, very nicely indeed. 6th place, Gary Neville, Sol FCR Motorsport, representing the AM class. He's a lap down on the race leader, and has Cam Rutledge behind. I think that is, yes it is, Cam Rutledge behind. And the race leaders probably won't be too far away from getting to Gary Neville's back bumper, but they've only got a handful of laps remaining, so they might get close, but they might not get past him entirely. Cracker in 7th, Mike Coulston in 8th. That's actually the second closest battle on the track at the moment for some of the last couple of spots of the classified finishes. Meanwhile, let's go back to our race leader. He's on the penultimate lap, Brenton Foley, and since he's managed to get the internet dramas resolved, well, not entirely, he's actually still using his 4G on his phone because it's reliable enough, but nonetheless, since he's got his internet dramas sorted for the time being, he's actually managing to pick up a good solid haul of points, and given where he was in the standings when we looked earlier tonight, 300 points is going to be music to his ears. It's going to vault him right up the order. Brendan Ross, having not scored any points tonight, he will remain as is on 795. Boak will score points, so he will move into outright first overall in the standings if they stay where they are. Foley will be outright 3rd. Devonish will score points, Termo score points, Rutledge will move up the order a little bit as well. So we expect the top 3 on points at the end of the night, which we will confirm will be in the order of Boak, Ross and Foley.
Yeah, it will really work to Foley's favour that he's gonna, he's leading this race, and if all goes to plan, there's going to be a win waiting for him. But his main rivals, they've sort of fallen off, and the wheels have fallen off their wagons, and all these things have happened that they've resulted in a lot of DNFs. So basically, big fat zero for a lot of them, and that's going to be like you said. There's going to be 3 top blokes in there, 3 top guys that they're going
Oh,
to.
he's gone off.
Oh, there we go.
Sorry to
As I
cut you
put the
off.
mockers on him.
He put the mockers on him. He has gone off at the southern loop. Now, where's his teammate? His teammate's going to shoot through, and he takes P1. So, what on earth happened there? It's the old commentator's curse strikes again. Let's see if we can pick up what happened to Foley. Well, here he is on board. Too much speed.
No.
Way too much speed, and he's just cannoned off, understeered off the end of southern loop.
Yeah, you're spot on there. Just understeered straight off. He couldn't get the nose back in, and look at this. Let's see if he can get back past his teammate, but because he's got better tyre life, but that mistake has made it very hard for him now.
Well, they talk about a last lap pass being commonplace in some of the super speedway events in NASCAR. Happens more often than not, and we've seen a couple in the last few weeks. We've seen a last lap pass in GT3 competition a few weeks ago at Suzuka, Lewis Wedding on Greg Tara, and we've now seen a last lap pass from Phil Boak on Brenton Foley, but that was not a last lap pass that you could probably call a pass. It was a pass because of a mistake from Foley, and lights on for PBF. And actually, is there going to be a change for the position? No, form finish. So I know why that's been done. So Boak finishes ahead of Foley, but I know why the form finish happened, and it was because there was a form finish in the GT3 round at Sepang on the weekend just gone, which was Jamie Snow and Brendan Ross. So PBF are racing in the GT3 comp as well. So they're sort of saying, well, if you can do it, we can do it too. Will Devenish takes home P3 after all that, a lonely P3. Termo coming through the final corner now to make a very solid P4, having started 7th. He had a ripper of a start actually, Termo, and has been inside the top 5 since then, but a good result. Cam Rutledge is just coming through the hay shed now and up over Lukey Heights. He's the last of the finishers on the lead lap, or will be the last of the finishers on the lead lap, with Gary Neville, Cracker and Coulston already have seen the flag. But a good result for CRA Motorsport, 3rd and 5th, or what is 3rd and will be 5th. And well, that's a little bit of an interesting line there, putting 2 wheels on the grass just between 11 and 12. We've seen a little bit of that tonight. But job done for Cam Rutledge. Good haul of points as well.
The next salvo to be fired in the team wars, PBF form finish, just like the GT3 round at Sepang, like you said. So, battle between FCR and our most prolific teams in the Automobilista Australia competition. So let's see. Oh, we might have a bit of a form finish as well for CRE Motorsport. They might be driving around in their ZB Commodores.
They certainly are. They're driving line astern at the moment as they come back to the pit lane. But it's interesting, the team wars. It's been an interesting sort of development over the last several months with how the team wars have gone. It started with the FCR teammates getting themselves organised. And then after that, it became a case of, oh, well, if you can have a team, so can we. So then PBF was formed and a bunch of other teams were formed. And now we've got these offshoots thinking that they can go and organise their own teams as well. So you've got Cracker Race Team's got a pair of cars. Same with HDS. PBF's got them. There's a PBF Pro-Am. There's actually 2 cars in PBF Pro-Am. FCR's got a multi-car team in some of the series as well. JP has brought JP Simshed across, so a number of the drivers are running under his banner in different categories as well. So they're all starting to... The team wars has escalated something chronic in the last sort of 8 months or so of AMS Oz, and it's an interesting thing to watch, just to see how all the teams are all trying to outdo each other. It's a very unusual thing. You don't sort of see that a lot in sim racing, and the teams have been there for a while in the likes of iRacing and that, but we're not counting teams' points in this team's championship. So just a side note there, it's predominantly a drivers' championship. Well, we've got our drivers starting to come in here to the commentary box for a little bit of a chat. And Hans, let's Let's grab Brenton Foley. Let's see what he's got to say about his race, because that was his for the taking up until that little last lap incident at Southern Loop. So let's get him before we get our race winner.
So we've got a few of our race finishers that, like I said, have walked in the commentary box, and Brenton Foley snatching defeat from the jaws of victory, it seemed.
It's the second race in a row that I've thrown away a good spot on the last lap. I really need to just stop talking and focus on driving at the last lap. That's literally all it was, just a silly mistake. I normally take turn 2 and third. I looked down and I was in fourth, so I'd missed a gear and just run straight wide and threw it away.
We were just saying how good your performance was, and it was actually going to be a victory that you were potentially waiting for you, and unfortunately not to be tonight.
When we saw that most of our opponents had unfortunately DNF'd early on, the plan for both PBF cars was just maximise points because we really need it. We've both had our troubles at the start of the season. I had one off, which I managed to very closely save. I'd done it in practice a few times, so I somehow luckily pulled it off this time that I kept it off the fence. But yeah, Phil drove very well. He deserved that one. Unfortunately, the PBF race engineering pit crew made a bit of a mistake and didn't change his rear tyres in that last pit stop, so he was literally driving the rears off it, and then I absolutely threw it away in the last lap. But it was overall a 1-2 again, still a great race.
Yeah, well done. Second is still a very good haul of points, so well done, Brenton Foley.
Thanks very much.
And on to Phil Boak now. So Phil, we just found out that your rear tyre life wasn't that great, but a win, I mean, you sort of take them any way they come, and obviously a formation finish is makes for a very good screenshot and makes for a very good set of talking points for the next round, doesn't it?
It does indeed. It looked fantastic, I'm sure. I'm hanging to see those photos. But that was, overall, it was a good race. It was very inconvenient timing. It was a good race. My car was really good. I expected Foley to kill everyone because his practice times were ridiculous. But in the race, my car hooked up, got the lead, had a little spin at the hairpin, and then went into the first pit stop, not far behind, and then we sort of battled out, got the lead again. And then, yeah, in the final pit stop, I don't know why, it's still saying on my screen that it's changed to new, but they just didn't change. So I had new fronts and old rears. So I was down to, I think it was 30% when I crossed the line at the rear. So it was a bit disappointing. I was fuming at that point. But
yeah, that's rather unfortunate. So in terms of the pit strategy, were you a bit worried that Turmo and Devonish were perhaps going to get past you?
A little. I actually, Turmo sort of come from nowhere. I expected Devonish to be there because he was sort of, that's where he was once Ross went out. So when they went in, I thought, ooh, do I go in? Do we keep going? We talked about like, nah, it's too early. Especially when Ross went in, he went in real early. Me and Foley talked about it. I thought, no, we'll keep going, stick to our plan. And we planned to be a lap apart around the 14-15 mark, and I think it worked perfectly.
Yeah, Phil, fantastic effort. Like I said, you got to take these wins as they come, and it was a well-placed effort, and you didn't throw it off the road. So well done, Phil.
Thank you.
And on to our third place finisher, Will Devonish, and we'll see if he's got his mic issues fixed. Will, fantastic effort. How was it trying to get past Turmo in those last sort of laps?
Oh yeah, it's noticed Turmo was a bit slower down at the slower corners, so the hairpin, and heading onto the back straight. So I was catching fist over fist there, and then on the straights he'd get away. But I was happy I was able to catch up to him pretty much towards the end of every pit stop. So before the pit stop. So the last stint I was able to get past him. Happy with that.
Well done. Did you change tyres in that last pit stop?
Yeah, every pit stop changed tyres. They were pretty much dead after lap 10, so really needed the fresh rubber.
and looks like a solid haul of points for your teammate as well. So all good, a good race round for CRE in the feature race tonight.
Yeah, really proud of Cam pulling getting home in fifth and getting both cars in the top five. So really happy with our performance tonight.
Great to talk to you, Will, as always, and Phil and Brenton Foley. So good to talk to the top three place getters, and fantastic effort by everyone tonight. And Will, well done on your third place.
Thank you very much.
Well, that was your top three for race number 6 of the season, which is part of round 4 of the AMSL's Super 2 series. We're just working through the point situations here at the moment, and we've actually failed to recognise that with Cam Rutledge's 5th place finish, he actually vaults up into second on the points overall provisionally, just factoring in that there may still be some issues to be reviewed. But as it stands right now, Phil Boak leading the championship on 1,023 points, and with 2 race wins under his belt and 2 second places. And second place, despite not having podiumed at all, Cam Rutledge with 813. So his best result, actually 4th in Adelaide, and next to best 5th tonight, and a pair of 6th places at Symmons Plains, puts him second overall, 210 off the leader Boak. Brendan Ross, despite not finishing, he is still third overall in the standings, a 795. He's got a win, a second place, and 2 thirds and a 4th to his name. But then the big killer is the DNF tonight, which ruins that run for him. Brenton Foley, he's occupying 4th place, a pair of wins and a pair of second places and a pair of disconnects. So things happening in pairs for Foley. And actually in quick succession too. Pair of DCs, the first 2 races. The second 2 races was a pair of wins, and the third 2 races was a pair of seconds. So we don't want that trend to continue in a downward trajectory. Will Devonish has moved up to 5th place, and this is where 5th, 6th and 7th are actually quite close. So Devonish is 5th on 645. Termo is 6th on 621. And Mitchell Hathaway, despite not finishing tonight, he actually hasn't finished the last 2 races. He is 7th with 618. A tie still between Steve Burko and Ricky Slick for 8th and 9th. They both did not finish the races tonight. However, looking at things on a count back, I think it's more than likely going to be, if it stayed the way they were, Ricky Slick is technically 8th. Both of the men have 2 fourth places, but Ricky Slick has a pair of 5ths, whereas Steve Burko's next best is a pair of 8th place finishes. And rounding out your top 10, Billy Douglas Salonga, he does not move up or down in the points either. In terms of the number that he has, he stays on 408. So that is your top 10. And we have a little bit of a break now until the next round of things, which happens to be Barbagallo Raceway, which in real life is now the Super Night for the Supercars Championship. But for us, it's not going to be a night race. It's just going to be a standard race. It's also going to be a feature race, so there'll be 300 points on offer for the winner, Hans.
Yeah, Barbagallo, it's going to be just like tonight. You really desperately need to finish that race if you want to stay in touch in the championship. But I want to see what's going to happen down at Cold Corner in the Barbagallo round. So that's going to be turning on a lot of fireworks, isn't it?
Certainly will. Well, we'll leave the fireworks until then, but for the moment, this has been the round 4 of the Automobilista Super 2 series. My tongue is getting twisted just trying to get all those words out. And we have got a little bit of a break now until the next commentary that comes along for Super 2 in a few weeks. But the next commentary up for myself is going to be the 2-hour event around the Abu Dhabi circuit for the GT3 competition. So I've been Steve DeVries. I've been accompanied by Hans Brunswick. As always, please drive safely, have a great Easter, and we'll see you next time. Bye for now.